It started with the kind of silence that stretches across continents. At exactly 6:32 a.m., the heart of General Elijah Nathaniel Braxton, age 68, stopped beating in his sleep. A man who'd marched through war zones in Kandahar, waded chest-deep through floodwaters in Louisiana to rescue stranded civilians, and once stood unflinching before a burning Humvee while pulling two of his men out with his bare hands, was now still. No sirens, no dramatic goodbyes, no medals, just the low hum of a ceiling fan spinning above him as the early morning sun crept through the plantation shutters of his home in Silver Spring, Maryland. His wife, Celeste, found him. Her scream echoed through the walls like a cannon blast. Elijah! She shook him, slapped his cheeks, called his name again and again. His chest did not rise. His eyes, often full of steel and warmth, remained closed. It wasn't until she collapsed into his arms, grasping the dog tags he never took off, that the world began to shift. The news spread like a fast-moving fire. By 10 a.m., every major black media outlet had posted it. Breaking, General Elijah Braxton dies at 68. Civil rights warrior, American hero. By noon, CNN was running retrospectives. MSNBC followed suit. Even Fox News issued a brief, sanitized obituary, avoiding all mention of Braxton's unflinching critiques of systemic racism within the armed forces and American policing. But on the ground, in the streets of Baltimore, Chicago, Birmingham, Watts, his name meant more than the medals. To many, Elijah Braxton had become a living monument, not just for surviving, but for fighting with purpose. To them, Braxton was black excellence in fatigues. To some in the old guard, though, he was a problem, a too outspoken man who didn't know his place. Braxton wasn't born with stars on his shoulder. He was born in 1956 in Selma, Alabama, the youngest of six. His mother was a midwife who walked 6 miles a day. His father, a Baptist preacher, had his skull cracked by a police baton in 1965 during the Bloody Sunday March across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Elijah was 9. He never forgot the blood soaking into the preacher's collar. He joined the Army at 18 not because he loved America, but because he wanted to make it accountable. He made rank fast. First lieutenant by 25, captain at 30. By 45, he was a decorated colonel with 3 Bronze Stars. But he was more than a soldier. He was a man who challenged military brass on racial disparities in promotions, who, while serving in Iraq, protected a Muslim civilian family from an American contractor trying to harass them, who stopped training exercises to call out Confederate flags in barracks. He became a general not by playing the game, but by rewriting it. 3 days after his passing, the Department of Defense announced that General Elijah Braxton would be honored with a full military funeral, complete with a 21-gun salute, a horse-drawn caisson, and a flag presentation to his widow. The location? St. Mary's Cathedral in Arlington, Virginia, a place of historic tension and reverence. Requests flooded in. Veterans, politicians, civil rights leaders, celebrities, former presidents, sitting members of Congress. They all wanted to attend, but not everyone was pleased. Online hate groups called him a traitor. Far-right networks fumed that Braxton had politicized uniform. Behind closed doors, whispers about crowd control and optics began to circulate through D.C. law enforcement. And that's where Officer Darren McConnell came in. McConnell was no stranger to controversy. A 17-year veteran of the Alexandria Police Department, he had over 6 use-of-force complaints. 3 settled quietly. He'd once been caught on body cam saying, "They all lie, especially the dark ones," during a traffic stop. No disciplinary action followed. Internal Affairs had reviewed his record. Still he remained, still armed, still bitter. He'd read the news of Braxton's death with a sneer. "Hero, huh?" he muttered in his patrol car. Let's see if they call him that when everything hits the fan. When the call came in requesting him for the funeral security detail, he almost laughed at, "Yeah, I'll do it," he told his supervisor. Should be educational. Marcus Elijah Braxton, the general's only son, returned home from Lagos, Nigeria, where he worked as a civil engineer on green infrastructure. He hadn't seen his father in 6 months. He landed in Dulles Airport with red eyes and a clenched jaw. Marcus wasn't just mourning. He was haunted. Their last phone call had been a week prior. His father had been tired, more tired than usual, but proud. "I don't expect perfection from this country," the old man had said, "but I expect truth, and I expect you to live in it, son." Now he was gone. Marcus took charge of funeral arrangements with military precision. Guest lists, speeches, security protocols. He handled it all, but the grief was leaking through the cracks. He'd catch himself staring at his father's boots in the closet, smelling his cologne on the suits he left behind, standing in doorways where the general used to pray. There was no blueprint for this kind of loss. 1 week before the funeral, a classified Homeland Security memo flagged multiple credible threats against the event. One entry read, "Intel suggests armed protesters may attempt to infiltrate funeral procession. Targets include high-ranking black officials and family members." Still, the funeral was not postponed. The president himself was expected to deliver remarks. Cameras would roll. The world would watch. But none of them could see what was coming. Not yet.